3, 2, 1, let's go! I am Casey. I guess you were here to listen to me talk a little about what we watched last week. Well, mostly. It's about more than just what we watched last week. It's about the stories we got to experience. Movies, TV, and books, yeah, anything really. This is a show about spreading love for the things we love, really. So do not think anything here is intended to be any sort of in-depth criticism or review of anything we are discussing. There are definitely going to be criticisms in there, but I don't know how to talk honestly without having some personal feels, good or bad. It would be disingenuous to say I'm talking about these movies objectively. That's blatantly not true, and I don't think it ever can be true. If I do end up being too toxic, though, please call me out and break down why. That is never the intent, and I really don't want to be that. There is going to be a separate video focused solely on everything we watched that was Shark Week, so look out for that later this week. We also got to spend last weekend at Blobfest 25 in Phoenixville, PA, a Blob-themed film festival. So something short breaking down that and isolating just the movies we watched for the event is also coming up. So let us know. Look at what we watched week 2 of July 2024. One Piece Adventure in Nebulandia from 2015. Okay, so I'm very here for a Foxy redemption arc. This little adventure starts with the promise of a classic pre-time skip style Foxy Pirates Davy back fight, only to swerve to give us a wholly unique story in One Piece, as this story's entire point is to weaken the strongest characters so everyone else kind of gets a moment to shine. After watching so many One Piece movies in such a short succession, what I really like about One Piece are the character interactions, especially that of Straw Hats. I adore this. While 3D2Y wasn't necessarily my jam, so if watching characters who don't usually get a whole lot of screen time in the One Piece world is something for you, then this is probably for you. Or it definitely was for me. 2018's The Death of Superman. It is really cute that we cast Jerry O'Connell's wife, Rebecca Romijn?
Rebecca Romijn.
An amazing actress in their own right to play Lois Lane. They both do great lending their voices to the roles in this animated adaptation of the industry-changing book of the same name, where an unstoppable alien force slowly crashes through a Justice League with the sole aim of making everything go squelch before him.
It killed him! It killed him!
The Justice League just trying to give Clark Kent a day off so he can go on an important date with Lois Lane, until we have to hit the big red S button and the titular Man of Steel has to finish the fight. The most notable changes made from the source material is using a Justice League current audiences would find more familiar. Sorry Guy Gardner and Bloodwind. Lex Luthor also tries to step up here as he is less involved with Doomsday's introduction. The changes make sense, don't really hurt the flow. If anything, they make the moment feel a little more important and that much more dire when Superman does show up, that Doomsday's beaten Wonder Woman, Batman, and The Flash. I do wish they had given us a dedicated Superman movie or made a Justice League movie a little more about him before this. While Jerry O'Connell has been really great throughout the series, and Superman has felt like a pillar in the world with his appearances, this is the first time we're really introduced to Lois Lane and the extended Superman cast. And while everyone sells it really well, it could have hit that much harder if we were given a little time earlier to see their relationships grow, not just see them during tragedy. But that is definitely not the movie's fault. It does everything it can to give you what the title promises. Followed by 2019's Reign of the Superman. Now, this does work great as a little double feature with The Death of Superman, which, great! That is kind of the point. Where The Death of Superman is a pretty straightforward story to adapt, Reign of the Superman had so many moving parts to incorporate and condense while trying to remain recognizably the story it's embodying. It does pretty well at that, for at least the first half, about 4 alternative Supermen who may or may not be on the up and up, vying for the public light and saving the day, while the second half here is all about stopping a big, legally distinct skybeam. As mentioned, there is so much more to adapt. There is not enough space to list all the recognizable changes, but this is still recognizably Reign of the Superman to me. Even if the speedrunning of the story makes it a little convoluted, it never felt as disorganized as Constantine's City of Demons did. And Rebecca Romijn.
Rebecca Romijn.
also just carries a Superman movie whose lead died at the end of the previous installment. 2019's Batman Hush. Finally, an animated Batman movie in this universe that is actually about Batman. New mysterious players in Gotham poking at Batman's psyche while the hero sparks old flames with Catwoman. It's a story that brings in a lot of the Batman rogues gallery while being very character and mystery focused that really hinges on both of these elements. Everything this movie does with Catwoman I think is fantastic. Both performers are great in the role. Jason O'Mara especially gives the best Batman we have seen in this world so far. This is also the best looking movie by far. It looks like we gave everything one more pass in depth and shading, and it makes the world of difference in presentation. The mystery though is controversial. I've never liked how it plays out here. I watched it with a person who had no knowledge of the reveal, and they were also disappointed, so it leads me to believe part of that original reveal in the graphic novel is what makes it work so well. It also feels like Gotham itself is incredibly underdeveloped in this universe. Outside of the Justice League, everything we've seen of Batman has either been League of Shadows or Court of Owls related. I really wish this had been moved up in the DC AMU timeline to before Batman Bad Blood, even if that would have meant losing the best bit in the movie and losing Damian Wayne. Or maybe it would have been better if he'd gotten a random call from Damian in Tibet who just knows he's on a date with Catwoman. Ghidorah! The three-headed monster from 1964. Now, we should watch this as the gods intended, as a double feature with Elvis Presley's 1965 classic Harem Scarum. Here we have a kaiju feature that takes its time to give us an exciting science fiction mystery to focus on for the bulk of the first half of the movie, when a princess escapes an assassination attempt only to be possessed by a Venusian alien and become a harbinger of doom as kaiju slowly rise from their respective slumbers. When Godzilla does show up, it is almost entirely to throw down, whether it is with Rodan or King Ghidorah, after some convincing from one of the Mothra larvae that covered him in discharge last movie. More so than any other of the previous features, it feels like the actors in the suits are having fun for the first time in the series, keeping up the same quality of effects we got in the last production, but keeping the tone really jovial. The light tone soaks through the rest of the movie, whether director Ishiro Honda liked it or not, apparently. The more I watch this movie, the more I appreciate how the movie takes its time introducing the kaiju, and it's reintroducing Rodan and introducing the titular three-headed monster. But it is understandable to want to get to the first real kaiju Royal Rumble in the franchise, and it is a really good one. 2009's Dragon Ball Evolution. When I started the Dragon Ball Marathon, I was committed to finally putting this on after having it in my DVD collection unopened since 2010. In this version of Dragon Ball, we follow 50% good-natured, 50% horny Teen Goku avenge his grandfather from the Namekian alien Piccolo and track down the titular MacGuffins with a girl on the same quest so she can become famous. Getting over being an awkward, clumsy, badass, dumb, adorable, hot martial arts master while adventuring from set piece to set piece and new companion to new companion while Piccolo's minions chase. All around, this adaptation feels like it was made by someone who was told secondhand what Dragon Ball was by a friend and didn't pay any attention. If you squint really hard and stand at the far end of the room, it kind of resembles a Dragon Ball. But really, everyone has shit on this movie in every way imaginable. From what I understand, the cast did take the production really seriously, despite realizing they were tricked into the production by promises of bigger production staff and bigger budgets. Everyone does bring a lot of fun energy to some really awkward lines, and I really do enjoy the Master Roshi Goku fight in the Not Kami House. Not as much as any of the fights in the anime, but I can appreciate it. 2024's Snoopy presents Welcome Home, Franklin! So, Wild Brian Studios has been really knocking it out of the park lately with the Snoopy shows, if anyone has actually been sleeping on it and has Apple Plus or a way to watch these. Welcome Home, Franklin shifts focus to longtime Peanuts cast member Franklin's introduction to the Peanuts gang, being awkward to a new town and trying to make new friends, ultimately competing in a soapbox derby alongside everyone's favorite sport, Charlie Brown. Oh, Snoopy is also having fun in the background, but this is really, really about Franklin. This whole production radiates warmth. It tells a genuine and sweet story where the characters both get to grow and learn a lesson, like real life lessons, while still feeling like the Charlie Brown we know. Also, wherever Franklin moved to is perfectly anachronistic in its timelessness. I love it. I love the town where Charlie Brown lives. Finally got to watch 2024's MaXXXine. After spending 2 movies in a cozy Texas farm, this production moves us to Hollywood, following the lone survivor of 2022's X. The titular MaXXXine has her final chance to make herself a star while avoiding a killer targeting our lead in an already cutthroat entertainment industry. Now, there are definitely some themes here that feel like they may have gone over my head because this felt more like a surface-level giallo throwback in comparison to the deeply thematic grindhouse slasher throwback in X or the insanely rich and thematic character thriller throwback in Pearl. Not that Ty West, as well as the entire cast, didn't deliver a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy that he promised. Now, MaXXXine is steeped in well-written, morally dark gray and pitch black characters that are as ruthless as they promise to be. And I know I watched it, a few times this year already, but Godzilla Minus One from 2023. In less than 10 minutes into this rewatch, the pre-orders opened up for the American physical media release, so in case you didn't know, pre-orders are open. I could not be more excited to actually own my own copy of this. Because this gorgeous retelling of Godzilla's story where a giant radioactive metaphor terrorizes Japan and haunts a failed kamikaze pilot just filled to the brim with PTSD. After multiple rewatches, I am not consistently finding new things to pay attention to or look at. It's just not that kind of a rewatch. Godzilla Minus One simply is that well made that the ride continues to be fun and engaging and thrilling to me. 1958's The Blob. So did you know Steve McQueen's smoking habit was so bad during filming, he'd hold a lit cigarette behind his back during scenes? You can actually sometimes see the smoke behind him if you look for it in this classic alien invasion sci-fi horror movie about a meteor filled with a living acidic tidal monster that just exists to consume everything with meat and blood, while the least suspicious teenagers have the best first date, doing their best to convince cops and the neighbors that there is a real imminent danger. The words that have always surrounded the Blob are generally camp and schlock, which, yes, there is that, but the script is really witty with strong characters, especially that in the leads of Steve and Julie. Julie is both smart and assertive throughout, while Steve is equally so and immediately supportive in a way that is unexpected of movies of this era. And while I've seen this movie many times before, getting to watch it in the Colonial Theater, the real filming location of the movie with the most enthusiastic audience you can imagine, is a whole other experience. 4 out of 5 of the shows were entirely sold out apparently, and everyone was filled with cheering and an audience singing along with the best opening theme to exist in motion pictures.
Beware of the blob, it creeps and leaps and glides and slides.
The 1988 Blob remake. So if you do want to make solidified blob crystals at home, it's just rock salt dyed purple, and I love easy, manageable visual effects like that. This remake keeps that core structure of the original story, the titular monster crash landing in a small town with the sole purpose of consumption, while the local youth have the worst first date trying to convince the cops and the townsfolk that there is danger. Here the remake does its best to scrub all of the unintentional camp of that original production while rounding out the minor cast, giving us more time to love or absolutely hate characters before they ultimately get got. The story takes subtle twists at every major juncture of the story to both keep the movie's themes more contemporary as well as constantly engaging. Again, got to watch this at the Colonial with the most enthusiastic and entertaining crowd you can imagine. When there were some minor issues with the projection, audience members dressed in CDC costumes mucked about on stage and had fun. While I love watching this at home, at Blobfest it was like an actual experience. 1972's Beware the Blob. I know it's not, but watching this back-to-back with the remake could almost be a sequel to Beware the Blob, with the original movie being shown as a piece of fiction in this movie, the Blob being known by the government, and Del Close showing up in a brief moment as hobo with an eye patch. Who knows, maybe the hobo miraculously survived and, became the Reverend here. Beware the Blob, as far as its story goes, is second verse, same as the first, a little bit louder and a whole lot worse. It's about the gloopy tidal monster terrorizing a small town and a young couple trying to warn everyone. The biggest changes being the titular Blob is just found in some dude's fridge and, being completely devoid of charm. That's not true. There is charm in the long, slow sequences, and insanely odd performances wrapped around the improvised sequences.
I don't cut hair, I sculpt it.
and I personally like how this Blob moves more than in the original. It's a little more fluid in scenes where it's rolling across a wide range, but Bobby is no Steve, and a bowling alley is no Colonial Theater. My biggest regret of Blobfest is not getting to see this in theaters to be riffed live with an enthusiastic audience, but I didn't even know this was a want until it was too late for me to get tickets. I'm very, very glad I got to rewatch it at home though. Despite everything I don't love about some of Blob, its quirks have grown on me in the years since I last watched it. 1954's Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's science versus capitalism when a scientific expedition through the Amazon turns into a slow burn horror story of a cast being stalked by the titular creature. Oh, and we have a purty lady on board and everyone is pretty horny for her, especially the creature. Now, Black Lagoon uses a pretty basic plot structure, but in turn gives us smart, well-rounded characters, mostly. Exceptionally beautiful cinematography and great slow burn scenes of building tension as the creature does the stalking. There is a weird power dynamic and a very choreographed B-plot romance, but everyone appears to be enthusiastic in giving consent, so yay for that, I guess. Outside of that, the character of Kay Lawrence really is a strongly written character, and the creature costume and sequences are truly stunning as ever. And again, while we didn't get to see this one in theaters for Blobfest, it's that really smart writing and that campy but earnest feel that does make it an amazing way to cap off the film festival. Glad I watched it at home. But yeah, thank you so much for sitting with me and talking about what we watched last week. I hope everyone got to watch something special and fun last week in their own right. I'd love to hear about whatever it was for you. And again, look for another Shark Week video and something about Blobfest dedicated soon. And before I go, just a quick reminder that you are really the best at being you, so thank you for being you. But I am genuinely exhausted from all my travel and need more sleep, so bye!